Do I have to register my business for HST GST? Awesome question, but before I get into it, if you find the video helpful, a like and a comment will go a long way to paying it forward. And of course, subscribe and hit that notification bell to keep getting hot off the press content that'll help put your small business on the map. So back to the question, do I have to register my business for HST? Well, first off, here's the general rule that in my experience, most people sort of heard of, but usually don't get it completely right. The $30,000 revenue rule, which is this: you are not required to register for HST GST if you are considered a small supplier. And here's the definition of a small supplier, and this comes right from the CRA website. A small supplier refers to a person whose revenue, along with the revenue of all persons associated with that person, from worldwide taxable supplies, was equal to or less than $30,000 in a calendar quarter and over the last 4 consecutive calendar quarters. You can voluntarily register if you are a small supplier, and there may be some very valid reasons to do so that you will review with your accountant long before you break soil or hang that shingle anywhere. Also, you generally cannot register for GST HST account if you only provide exempt supplies. And I'm going to unpack this term shortly. Now, I just gave you the definition of a small supplier, but there were 2 terms I mentioned within that definition that I would really like to unpack because they are very important terms that can make a very big difference into whether you register an HST account or not. Let's unpack taxable supplies, or better yet, let's talk about the 3 different kinds of supplies and their characteristics. First, there's taxable supplies, and this means goods or services that you provide that you are required to apply the GST HST rate on the sales price if you are a registrant. The rate you apply will generally be the rate applicable to the province you're in, but if you have customers in other provinces or out of country, or even if you are an online good or service provider, there's some very tricky rules around which rates, if any, to apply. And on this note, I'm highly recommending you discuss this with an HST specialist. Just message me and I'll hook you up. Now, how do we know if the supplies we offer are considered taxable supplies? I'm going to ask you to go to the CRA website on this because there's a pretty non-exhaustive list of items here, and for the most part, most goods and services are taxable, but you'll need to determine if you're providing taxable supplies, and you need to know this long before you start selling. So again, spend the extra money on an HST specialist and avoid what could be a super hefty tax bill down the road. Now, the cool thing for registrants who are required to charge HST on the goods or services they supply is that they can get a rebate on the HST that they pay on expenditures that relate to the revenue they are taxable on. You see, GST HST is what they call a value-added tax, or a VAT, and it's meant to be borne by the end consumer. And so value added along the way to the end consumer is literally just a collection exercise for the business owner. So the business owner is economically not really out anything except for their time to act as a tax collector for the CRA. The second kind of supply, which is really just a subset of the taxable supplies I've just mentioned, is called zero-rated supply. So this too is a taxable supply, but at a rate of 0%. Like, God loves CRA. But here are the implications of this. You don't need to charge your customer GST HST, but you will get to claim the HST paid on expenditures as a rebate. So that's pretty cool. Again, look to the CRA website to see if the goods or services you're selling are considered zero rated. Now, the third is called exempt supply. And this is a good or service that you will not charge GST HST on, and you don't get to claim the GST HST on expenditures that are related to the revenue associated with exempt supply. So those are the 3 types. Okay, so the other term I mentioned in the basic rule for small suppliers is the part where I said a small supplier refers to a person whose revenue, along with the revenue of all persons associated with that person. Now, what did they mean here? Well, in a nutshell, and very simply put, if you have another company that you control that's selling taxable goods and services, they're also included in that 30,000 K threshold. Or another trap people don't think about is this. Say someone has a company that has revenue exceeding 30K. Well, they are therefore not considered a small supplier. They must register for HST GST, and they must begin charging HST in goods and services. Now, here's the problem. Let's say they are also dabbling in some personal side hustle or looking to buy an Airbnb or whatever. That someone must also become a registrant. You see, because they are associated with their company, they must register. Bummer, eh? But this is good to know now before you get in too deep on something. My final thought here is this. HST GST is a highly complex tax. It might seem simple at face value, but believe me, there is a complete profession outside of a chartered accountancy that is dedicated to GST alone. The rules can get apeshit crazy, and pardon my French. So I've got friends that can help us. You just need to reach out and I'll hook you up. But don't scrimp here because you're afraid of an invoice from an HST specialist. It'll very likely be the best use of money your business spends. Registering for HST GST account is super easy. You can just call the CRA business line and give them some info, and 2 minutes later, after the 10 to 20 minutes or more that you put on hold listening to some really awesome music, you are registered. Or become a client of ours and we'll take care of everything for you. So click my link and let's chat. That's it for me and the GST. Catch you on the flip side.